Good morning. This morning we're going to be looking at writing using paragraphs. And by the end of this session, you must be aware of logical order in writing, use introductions when writing certain texts, use some organisational markers when writing, and you should use logical order when writing, have developed your paragraphing skills, be aware of and attempt to achieve paragraph cohesion, use conclusions in certain forms of writing. And you could improve your writing with paragraph details and use all of the above to be an effective writer. So we're going to start by watching a video about logical order and paragraphs.
Paragraphs and writing in a logical sequence. What is writing in a logical sequence? What do we mean by paragraphs? You should always write in a logical sequence. Logical sequence means that your writing has a start, a middle, and an end. The reader should be able to follow your thoughts in an order that makes sense. At level 2, in the functional English assessment, you should also show that you can write in paragraphs. Paragraphs give your writing structure and meaning. They help readers to make sense of your writing. Here's what you need to know. What is a paragraph? A paragraph is a group of sentences about one main idea. Each paragraph has a main point. What is a paragraph made of? Key sentence equals main idea. A paragraph has a key sentence. This is often the first sentence and tells you the main point of the paragraph. It introduces what the paragraph will be about. Supporting sentences equals more detail. Following sentences help to give extra detail about the main point. They are called supporting sentences and develop the ideas in the paragraph. Sometimes paragraphs have an ending sentence to finish off the paragraph, but whether or not you use a closing sentence depends on the size of the paragraph and what kind of writing you are doing. Don't worry too much about ending sentences, as these are not as important as the key and supporting sentences. Types of supporting sentences. To develop your paragraphs, you can give examples or reasons. You might have examples that show that your idea is a good one. Use a true story or anecdote. Real-life examples are a good way to prove your point. Make comparisons. Comparing things can give the reader a point of reference. Quote statistics or use evidence. Statistics and scientific information works well to provide evidence to back up your theories and ideas. How do I set out a paragraph? Start on a new line. Indent or not to indent. To indent a paragraph, you leave a space on the line before writing. Indenting a paragraph looks like this, and it should be used in handwritten text. Block paragraphing looks like this, and should be used in typed text. How long is a paragraph? Paragraphs can be as long or as short as you like, although here's a word of warning. If you have a full page of writing which is all one paragraph, chances are that something has gone wrong. Aim for 4 or 5 sentences. Just remember to fully explore your main point. How do I link paragraphs? Each paragraph must follow on from the last one and be linked to the next one. Here are a few easy ways that you could do this. By using numbers. In the first place, in the second place, or perhaps firstly, secondly, finally. By using phrases such as, in spite of this, although this is true, to sum up, alternatively, not only.
Okay. So, logical order, so that your writing makes sense, your writing needs to be in order with a start, a middle, and an end. And at level 2, your writing should have clear and coherent paragraphs. So we've got a list here for a logical sequence for a newspaper article, which is trying to persuade readers to back a new development. So the order for that would be an introductory paragraph, which, for example, could use a statistic to hook the reader. Say why the author is for the development and give a brief overview of the situation. In the second paragraph, say why the development will be good for local people. So could have some quotes, some examples. Paragraph 3, why the development will be good for local business. Again, some examples, some evidence, quotes. And paragraph 4, reasons why people against the development are wrong. And then the concluding paragraph would summarise those reasons and end with a compelling statement. Okay, so that would be a logical order for that article, where we've been given that context there about the new development. So this is a list of points to go in a letter of complaint about poor service. So this is the sort of exercise that you might be given to do during your assessment. So it's we've got some examples here of which points should go in which paragraph. Remembering that the first paragraph will always be your introduction and your final paragraph will be your conclusion. So the number of paragraphs might differ depending on what you choose to write and what your the task you've been given is and how much information you put in, but that will always be the same. The first paragraph, the introduction, and the final paragraph, the conclusion. So we've got a list of points there. You were charged for racket and ball hire you didn't use. You want the company to reply to you by return. The court had you booked on the court you had booked on the phone was already being used. It took 10 minutes before anyone came to see you. You visited the tennis centre on the 1st of November. You have a copy of your receipt. You want a refund. You are disappointed as the service did not live up to your expectations. So, in the example here, in paragraph 1, you will be given an introduction to the situation on using points 5 and 6. So you visited the tennis centre on the 1st of November and have a copy of your receipt. Okay, and the next paragraph, you're going to develop your ideas. So you're going to explain the reason for your letter using points 4, 1 and 3. So it took 10 minutes before anyone came to see you at reception. You were charged for racket and ball hire you didn't use, and the court you had booked was already being used. Okay, so you're developing the ideas of your complaint. In the next paragraph, you're thinking about, or you're writing about, what you want the company to do and why. So point 8, you're very disappointed as the service did not live up to your expectations. Therefore, number 7, you want a refund. So you've told them that you want a refund and why you want that refund. And then you're going to conclude. So using point 2. So you could have something here like, in summary, I'm not happy and I'm requesting a full refund. So point 2, you want the company to reply to you by return. So you want a response to my letter by return. Okay. So can you see how those different points, they're put into a logical order to make, to write the letter? Okay. Does anyone have any questions about the ordering of the ideas? So when you do your assessment, you'll have you'll be given pencil and paper, pen and paper. You can bring that with you if you want to, and you will have enough time, as long as you use it efficiently. You will have enough time to jot down some ideas before you start typing them on the computer, because the test is done online, so it's done on a computer. But you will have a pen and paper to do some planning and jot down some ideas before you start writing on the computer. So that's the time when you could jot down your ideas and then think about the order, how that would logically fit together. Okay. So you're putting things in order, and and you need to put them into paragraphs. So you need to think about your paragraphing skills. So what makes a good introduction? So, excuse me. An introduction is for the author to tell the reader what the text is going to be about. So it needs to grab the reader's interest, and this could be done with a quote, an interesting fact, a question, or an anecdote. But don't say this will be about, okay? Yeah. So it's not an ideal way to start, okay? Oh, sorry. Back up. And then in your introduction, you're going to give a little bit of background information about the topic. So it's an outline. Don't give the detailed information in your introduction. It's just an overview. And it should reflect the question or task. So you could rephrase the question that you've been given to answer, but don't copy it exactly. You could paraphrase it, but not copying the question or the task. So for example, if you're given the task to write a letter of complaint about I don't know, to the council because there's a lot of litter on the streets, then you wouldn't just copy out what the task is. I am writing because I want to complain about litter on the streets. You need to paraphrase that. I'm writing because I'm really not happy about the amount of litter that I can see on the streets near my home, or something like that. But you don't just copy it exactly. Okay, and I did actually have there we go, an example of an introduction to show you. So this is an introductory paragraph to an article, you can see at the bottom there, by Ross Savage, My Transoceanic Midlife Crisis. In March 2006, I found myself at 38, divorced, no kids, no home, and alone in a tiny rowing boat in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. I hadn't eaten a hot meal in 2 months. I'd had no human contact for weeks because my satellite phone had stopped working. All 4 of my oars were broken, patched up with duct tape and splints. I had tendinitis in my shoulders and saltwater sores on my backside. I couldn't have been happier. Okay, so that introduction, if we go back, we've got anecdote. This person's telling us their experience, so there's an anecdote there. It's got interesting facts about the facts she's not eaten, that she's got sores, and also some interesting information about her life situation at that time, her age, when she's divorced. And so there's the background information there. and it makes you want to read on and find out more about why she's in this situation. So it's grabbed our interest. Okay, so that's just one example of an introductory paragraph. So that example hooks the reader with that interesting information and anecdote that she gives us. And to make your text interesting, you can use those techniques to hook the reader. So you've been asked, imagine you've been asked to write an article about the importance of vaccinating dogs against disease. So think of an example of each of the following you could use to start your writing. Okay, so a quote. So we've got a quote from the RSPCA. It's a paraphrase quote rather than a direct quote. It's not using speech marks. You can do either. You can, if you need to for your assessment, you can make up the quote, because obviously it's not, you're not writing a real article or news story or whatever it is you've been asked to do for your assessment. So, but it's showing that you could use a quote. Okay, so you're not going to be going out and interviewing people, but you can imagine a quote and use so you could either paraphrase it like this, or you could use quotation marks, okay, inverted commas. The RSPCA says that not vaccinating your dogs can be a form of pet cruelty. And you also could use an interesting fact. 20% of dogs in the UK are not vaccinated against any disease. A rhetorical question. Do you want to be responsible for your dog infecting others? So rhetorical question, always a good way to hook the reader. We know it works in hooking the reader because it is constantly used by advertising and marketing companies. If it didn't work, they wouldn't bother because they're spending a lot of money on it. So we know that rhetorical questions do work to hook readers. They want to know more. It draws people in. Do you want to be responsible for your dog infecting others? No, of course you don't. You don't want your dog to make other dogs sick. So you want to find out more about how you can stop that. So yeah, a really good device, a really good writing device, a rhetorical question. And an anecdote. So using a story, so in this example about vaccinating dogs, using a story about a much-loved pet that became seriously ill because the owners forgot to keep up with his vaccinations. Okay. Does anyone have any questions about that? Okay. So we're going to watch another video which will give us more details about paragraphs and writing in a logical sequence. So just bear with me one moment.
Paragraphs and writing in a logical sequence. When to change a paragraph. At level 2 in the Functional English Assessment, you should show that you can write in paragraphs. Paragraphs give your writing structure and meaning. They help readers to make sense of your writing. One of the things that people find tricky is knowing when and where to change paragraph. Here's what you need to know. Knowing when to begin a new paragraph can seem tricky. Some people just begin a new paragraph every few lines or so in the hope of getting it right. But there are reasons for changing paragraphs, and you can learn these easily. Use tip-top. Here's how tip-top works. TI equals time. This really is as simple as it sounds. When you move on in time, move along in your paragraphs. Here's an example. Let's imagine that we have bought a faulty fridge freezer and are writing to complain about this. We've already started our letter and moved on to the main event. I bought the Freeze 0900 in January last year. The story we are telling begins in January. Paragraph 2 would explain all about what happened in January when the Free Zone 900 was bought. In February, I rang the store where I bought the fridge. We've now moved on to February and what happened next. So we changed paragraph to paragraph 3 as we are moving forward in time. A replacement freeze was delivered in March. The saga is now continuing into March, so we change paragraph again to give us paragraph 4 as we are moving along in time. This will carry on until we reach our final concluding paragraph. Place. P equals place. Change paragraph if you start talking about a new place. TO equals topic. Topic means the same thing as subject. When you move on to a new topic or the subject changes slightly, then it's time to change paragraph. Here's an example. Let's say you are writing an essay about raising the driving age in the UK. You have thought of 3 separate main points to talk about. Here's how your writing might look. Paragraph 1, Introduction. This essay will consider the reasons why the driving age in the UK should be raised from 17 to 21. Paragraph 2, Main point 1. Teenage drivers are not mature enough to handle the pressure of driving on busy roads. Your first main idea talks about the maturity of young drivers. Paragraph 3, Main point 2. Drivers under the age of 21 are easily distracted. Your second main idea talks about how young people are distracted by text messages or the radio. Even though generally we are still talking about young drivers, the topic has changed slightly, so we introduce a new paragraph. Paragraph 4, Main point 3. At 17, drivers don't have a full understanding of the consequences of their actions. Your third main idea discusses consequences and how young drivers don't really understand how serious their actions might be. Again, we are still talking overall about young drivers, but the topic has changed slightly, so we introduce a new paragraph. So, a piece of writing will be talking about the same topic overall, but there will be different things to say about that topic. Each time the subject changes, the paragraph changes too. P equals person. Change paragraph when you introduce a new person or change from one person to another. This is useful to remember if you are writing something that has direct speech in it, such as a story or article. Let's look at this example. In the second section, starting I like fashion, we have introduced a new paragraph when Joe starts to speak. Think of TikTok to help you remember when to change paragraphs. Use a plan. Another thing that can help you change paragraph is to use a plan. A plan helps you to come up with lots of ideas and then put those ideas in a sensible order, i.e. a logical sequence. It is a good idea to number your plan. Each time you change your number on your plan, you can start a paragraph. Easy. So, why do we need to be able to write in paragraphs? If you do not write in paragraphs, then it is very difficult for your reader to follow your writing. A huge block of text, i.e. one that is not written in paragraphs, is off-putting to the reader. It looks to the reader like they are bringing too much information. All of the text is written in one big chunk. Paragraphs give your writing structure and make the business of reading easier. Writing is all about communicating, and paragraphs are a key part of making yourself understood. And of course, at work you could be writing letters, care plans, reviews, emails, forms, information sheets. The list is endless and it will be expected with all work-related professional documents that paragraphs are used.
Okay. So, thinking about what we've just listened to in the video, can anyone suggest anything they remember from the video, anything they've heard that makes a good paragraph? So anything at all. So you can just call out, remember to unmute yourself.
Good morning. Paragraph should have a start, middle, and an end.
So your text should have a start, a middle, and an end, and you'll use paragraphs. So you have an introductory paragraph at start, you'll have several, one or more middle paragraphs, and then a final paragraph. But within each paragraph, what makes a good paragraph?
Structure.
Yeah.
Meaning. Structure and meaning, actually.
Yeah, so you need to have a point to each paragraph that you're trying to make. Can you remember the how to remember how to change paragraphs. She gave you a way that you could remember it, like a word.
Key sentences.
So she said tip top.
Tip top, yeah.
So if you remember that tip top mnemonic, then when you get into your assessment, then you can quickly jot that down and use that to help you structure. Okay, so PI, the time, so including the
Time,
date
yeah.
or order.
Place.
Yeah, so you need the place. So if there's a new place, you need a new paragraph. So in the example, there was in the video example, they was talking about a complaint about a fridge freezer. So initially the delivery that comes to your house, but then it could be talking about you telephoned the company. So the physical place hasn't changed, but it's no longer talking about a delivery to your house. It's now talking about a conversation on a phone. So it's like a different place. Also the topic change. So remember that could be a slight change. You're writing about young drivers, but each paragraph would be a slightly different argument. So about they're not mature enough, about them being distracted, that's a different topic, and so on. So it might, you know, obviously what you're asked to write in your assessment will be overall about one subject. But within that, if you're forming an argument, then each paragraph will be a slightly different part of that argument. Okay. And the final P of that tip top is person.
Yeah, person.
Yeah. So if a new person is introduced to the story, to the argument that you're making, to the information that you're writing, then start a new paragraph. If you are quoting people, when you quote a new person, start a new paragraph. Okay, so tip top. Okay, so what makes a good paragraph? So some of this we've already mentioned. So the ideas must all relate to a single main idea. So even if just one sentence is off topic, it can confuse the reader. So the paragraph should have unity, a sense of togetherness. So if you're talking about, so for example, you're talking about the fridge freezer issue that was in the video, and you are talking about the delivery of a fridge freezer on a certain date, if you suddenly start talking about what the delivery person looked like, the colour of their hair, what they were wearing, that's going to confuse the reader. That's not relevant. Okay, so you don't need that information. So they should all relate to the single idea, and don't include in unnecessary information, because if it's off topic, that can confuse the reader. Why are they including that information? Are they going to tell me more about that later? And it's just about don't include unnecessary information. The sentences should fit together logically, making the paragraph coherent, and the details are clearly connected. So again, not introducing random information. It should be clear why it's included. And paragraphs need to contain a developed amount of details. So within your paragraphs, as your writing task progresses, then you need to make sure that the main ideas are sufficiently discussed. Okay, so the example of the raising the driving age that was in the video, you need to make sure that you give enough information for each argument. So why do you know, what are the reasons that you think the driving age should be raised, and why are young drivers not capable? You need to make sure that you develop those ideas. There's sufficient information in each paragraph. So not just a sentence saying they get easily distracted. That's not enough information. You need to develop that, have sufficient discussion. What are they distracted by? Why is that more so for younger drivers? Okay, any questions? Okay, so what does a good paragraph look like? So the topic of the paragraph is often given in the first sentence, and we call that the topic sentence. Sometimes it's not the very first sentence, but normally it is. So it gives the main idea of the whole paragraph. So if we look at the example, the topic sentence is highlighted there with the grey purple box saying topic sentence. Excuse me. In my spare time, I like to go running. Okay, so we know this is going to be about running. From the very first sentence, we know what we're going to be reading about, what the topic is. Supporting sentences will follow in the paragraph, giving more details or evidence. So we can see in this example, there are 4 supporting sentences. So let's have a look at those. It's a good hobby for lots of reasons. You burn calories and keep fit. If you're sociable, you can join a club and run with others. You can run whenever you like, and the only thing you need is a pair of decent trainers. So the topic sentence told us this paragraph is about running, and then the supporting sentences have developed that. Why does this person like running? Why is it a good hobby? So it's developed that idea. And the ending sentence closes the paragraph, and it might repeat the topic sentence. So the initial sentence telling us what the paragraph's about, that might be repeated at the end, but it will be paraphrased, or the topic will be given in a slightly different way. So here the ending sentence is running is an ideal hobby. So you can see the similarity there between in my spare time I like to go running, our topic sentence, and running is an ideal hobby. Okay. So any questions about that? And then at the end of that list of paragraphing skills, we can see you should leave a line between each paragraph. So as noted in the video, when you are handwriting something, which is more unusual these days if you are in a professional environment or if you are doing academic writing or professional writing, it's unusual. But if you are handwriting, then you would indent the paragraph. You don't need to leave a big space between them. But what's most important to remember, because it's what you'll be doing most often professionally, academically, and for this purpose in your level 2 assessment, is on a computer, you leave a line. So you get to the end of your paragraph, press return, and then press return again to leave a line. And you don't indent it. Every sentence, or sorry, every paragraph will start at the same point on the page. You just leave a line between each paragraph so it's clear to see when someone picks up the writing that it has been structured and it's organised. Okay, as in the video, we have that example of the big page, the big long page of text with no paragraphs. It looks straight away, it looks that it's, the reader's going to think it's unorganised, it's a bit over-facing, it's a bit daunting to read because it just looks like a big block of information that you're going to have to take on without any structure. So even without reading anything that you've written, The appearance of the paragraphs on the page will make your reader feel more comfortable, will make them think that you have got organised writing there and that what they're about to read, they will be able to understand clearly. Okay. So we've got 2 paragraphs here, and each one has a sentence that doesn't belong. Now, the sentences that don't belong are already highlighted because I'm not able to take that highlighting off. So you can see that they've got a red, like red boxes around them. So we can already see the sentences that don't belong, but we'll read through them anyway and see if you can spot why they don't belong. So paragraph 1, Jamal headed to ESIT for a marketing communications certificate, which was where he got his first real taste of internet marketing. He was hooked. He set up his own marketing firm in 2017. While there, he developed his love of writing, developed while studying his history degree. His love of communicating with people and his love of organising and put it to very good use in the world of online marketing. So why do you think that sentence has been highlighted? Why doesn't it belong in this paragraph?
It has to do with his company. It doesn't have anything to do with gaining the marketing communication certificate.
Exactly. Well done. Yeah, exactly. So that information could be used about his company, as you've said, later in the text, but it's not relevant here. So it makes the sentences disjointed. So the first sentence is about where he's getting his marketing qualification. Then we have that sentence about him setting up his firm, but then it says while there. Well, does that mean while he was at his marketing firm, or does it mean while he was at ESIT getting his marketing qualification? So it makes the rest of the text unclear. That information doesn't need to be in this paragraph, okay? So paragraph 2, let's have a look at this one. When he graduated, he got a job in internet marketing. Here he met one of his mentors, Laurent Dupre. They worked together rolling out an online marketing plan and created a new website. Oh, I've missed out a sentence there, haven't I? He met one of his mentors, Laurent Dupre. Laurent drove to work in a Bugatti. They worked together, rolling out an online marketing plan and created a new website. Unfortunately, the business went under in the 2008 financial crash, just days before the website was to go live. However, it was an invaluable experience for Jamal. So why is that sentence highlighted? Laurent drove to work in a Bugatti.
It has to do with Laurent's personal life. It doesn't have anything to...
Yes, well done. So that, including that sentence about his vehicle is making me think, why do I need to know about that vehicle? Is that going to be relevant later? Am I going to hear more about that? Does that affect Jamal's career that I'm learning about in marketing? So it's not relevant. We don't need to know about Laurent's car, however fancy it is. We don't need to know that. Okay. If it is relevant in some way, then that could be later on in a different paragraph. Okay, it's not relevant to what we're talking about here, which is Jamal meeting his mentor. They set up a business, but it went under. Okay, so that's the topic of this paragraph, not his mentor's car. Okay. So any questions about that? Okay, so you can make sure your paragraphs are coherent by writing in a logical order. So this could be the order of importance, or it could be chronological order or time order, the order in which things happen. So using connectives, appropriate connectives to connect your sentences. So we have looked at connectives in a previous session and we've got some examples there. After, finally, soon, first, then, next, before, later, because, therefore, and, by. Okay. So, so chronological order. I started the business from a trading unit in 1990. In 1995, I took a lease on premises just outside the city centre. In 2000, I was running 6 body workshops across the northwest. I plan to open 3 more next year. So we can see the order of the dates of this person's business experience and into the future of what they plan to do next. Using connectives, I started the business from a trading unit in 1990. Then I took a lease on premises just outside the city centre in 1995. By 2000, I had 6 body workshops across the northwest. Next, I will open 3 more next year. So you wouldn't have the next in, that's an error there. Next, I will open 3 more. So you could use connectives to start your sentences, but it's still in a chronological order, but rather than starting with the date, it started using those connectives. So using some connectives shows the logical order. So first, then, next, by. It gives an order to your writing to include some connectives, okay, to make your paragraph coherent. So it makes sense, it makes a logical order. So chronological means in order of time or the order in which something happened. So if you were writing a letter of complaint, which was a previous example, the order of what happened, when a freezer was delivered, when it started to go wrong, what you did and when, what you did first and when. So a week later, I rang the complaints department and so on. So what's the order? So this paragraph is not in chronological order. The annual training day will start at 9 AM on the 2nd of August at Oaks Training Centre. On the 2nd of August, the management team will meet at 8 AM in the lobby. All staff attending must be at the centre by 8:45. Email invitations to the annual training day will be sent out on the 15th of July. The personnel department will confirm numbers by the 28th of July. We have to let the training centre know numbers by close of play on the 30th of August. So it's not a clear paragraph because it's not in order. So let's have a look at that paragraph in a more chronological format. Emails to the annual training day will be sent out on the 15th of July. The personnel department will confirm numbers by the 28th of July. We have to let the training centre know numbers by close of play on the 30th of July. On the 2nd of August, the management team will meet at 8 AM in the lobby. All staff attending must be at the centre by 8:45. The annual training day will start at 9 AM on the 2nd of August at Oaks Training Centre. So can you see, or I hope you can see, that in that second paragraph, it's much clearer. The first paragraph is very jumbled, whereas the second paragraph, the order is chronological. It's a lot clearer to the reader what is going to happen and when. Okay, so
Go and make a
anyone have any questions? questions? Okay, so organisational markers, these are another way to make sure your paragraphs are coherent. So connecting your sentences with organisational markers, so those connectives. Okay, so after, finally, soon, first, then, and so on. So if we have a look at these two paragraphs, we can see the difference when we put those organisational markers in. A year ago, we invented a new time-saving way to make tin food. It's completely revolutionary. Lots of manufacturers wanted to use our idea. We didn't know who to work with. We needed investment to take the method further. We shortlisted 2 companies. You'll be able to buy food made with our new method next year. And then if we look at the next paragraph using those organisational markers. A year ago, we invented a new time-saving way to make tin food. It's completely revolutionary. Soon, lots of manufacturers wanted to use our idea. However, we didn't know who to work with. We needed investment to take the method further. Therefore, we shortlisted 2 companies and started talking to them. Consequently, you will be able to buy food made with our new method next year. So it sounds more professional using those markers. Soon, however, therefore, consequently. So using those type of words for some of your sentences. So you don't need to use them every time, but including some of them is a way to make your writing, it's more interesting, it's more coherent, it looks more professional, and it shows your level of understanding about writing paragraphs. So really important to include some of those in your paragraphs. So your writing should flow smoothly, so the transition from one paragraph to the next is natural. And these markers can be used for different purposes. So we can see there we've got lists to show time, to show cause and effect, to persuade, to add a point. So we've got lists of those words and what they can be used for. So if you're asked to write a persuasive piece of writing to persuade a person or an organisation to do something that you want. So an example I gave earlier about writing to the council to ask them to clear litter, you're trying to persuade them, then you could think about using those words there, certainly, clearly, evidently, and so on. So they're good lists of words to think about, to have some of those examples in your head for the task you're given. Okay, so it's probably worth noting some of those down. If you access the recording later, you could pause it on this slide and just make a note of some of those, try and learn some of those so that you can include them when you do your assessment and also when you are writing professionally or academically. So these are used for emphasis, for contrasting and similarity, and for conditional situations. So again, these are good examples of words to include depending on the task you're given and depending on how you're organising your work. But definitely showing some of these words shows your level of understanding about the organisation of writing and how it should be done. So again, if you look back at the recording later, you can pause this page, you can make a note of some of those words or phrases. So you want to be giving some examples in your writing. It fleshes out your writing in an interesting way. It makes the reader want to carry on reading. So examples are really important. So for example, for instance, notably, specifically, to demonstrate, to illustrate, such as, like. Okay, so using those examples, using those phrases and words to introduce examples in your work. Again, all of these devices, they show that you know how to structure your work, how to organise it, your writing, and also you are making it interesting to read. Okay, so skills not just for passing your level 2 assessment, but also important skills for any writing you are doing personally or professionally in the future. So adding details to paragraph. So paragraph is not just one sentence, we need extra detail in there. So there's a number of ways to do this, using facts or statistics that support your main idea. So in the example earlier on about vaccinating dogs, it gave a percentage of how many dogs are vaccinated. So provide a clear and detailed definition of the subject. So what are you writing about? Using descriptive words. Sorry, going to the previous one, the person talking about running, he was saying the reasons why he enjoyed it and why other people might like it, and also why it's important. Using descriptive words, so adding some adjectives to your writing. So examples that support your main points. Providing a contrast. So how is your idea different to other ideas? How is it better? How does it compare? So, using comparison, so similes and metaphors. Using cause and effect. So how does the litter on the streets cause problems for the community? Just giving examples of that. And using details that appeal to one or more of the 5 senses. So describing how does it make people feel? Okay, what could they see, and so on. So the conclusion. So we've talked about the introduction, the subsequent paragraphs, but you need to end your writing in an effective way. What makes a good conclusion? So it should reinforce your main ideas, but in a new way. So don't just repeat what you've already written. Refer back to the introduction. So as I stated at the start of this letter, okay, refer back. It's a good opportunity to show the assessor you've addressed the question. Only include the most important points from your discussion and don't include any new information. And the best conclusions have a striking ending or use compelling language, especially in a persuasive text. So have a look at these conclusions. One is weak, one is better. Why is this? So just have a look at those for a moment. Okay, so which one is better and why?
2.
One.
Yeah, number 2. Why do you think it's better?
It's persuasive and it's more detailed.
Yeah, there's more detail in there, isn't there?
Yeah.
Yeah. So so the second sentence starts with I've shown that. So he's referring back to what he's mentioned in the previous paragraphs. Good, it's persuasive using the word I, we. So what we can do together, it's persuasive for others. And it's obviously it's about global warming. It's a persuasive piece of writing. Okay, the last sentence, global warming can be slowed if we all do our bit. So he's drawing the reader into that argument there that everybody can do their bit. So it's not just him, but the reader can do their bit as well. So it's a striking ending. Okay. So any questions? So if anyone needs to go to another lesson at 10 a.m, we're going to run over a little bit this morning. If you need to go, that's fine. You can just leave this meeting and catch up on the recording later or next week when it's put online. So don't worry about that if you need to leave. So what is effective writing? It has a clearly defined purpose. It makes a definite point. It supports that with specific information. So it's not just, I think, my opinion is all of the way through. It's giving examples, evidence, and so on, other people's ideas, and so on. The information is clearly connected and arranged. So that structure that we've been talking about, the words are appropriate, the sentences are concise, emphatic, and correct. So don't include irrelevant information and choose appropriate and effective language. So the first part of this text is about the dangers of bringing news into the classroom and has examples of these elements. So the importance of global media appears to increase year after year, so much so there have been calls to introduce news channels into the classroom. I believe this to be dangerous and potentially damaging due to the nature of international media. So it summarises the task and sets out its purpose well. So they're going to be talking about why it's dangerous and damaging. So then it's moving on to the next paragraph. Firstly, considering the importance of education in modern society, it is extremely worrying and dangerous to even consider substituting school subjects with international news. So that first sentence of the next paragraph backs up the opening paragraph. So this is because the danger lies in choosing a correct, balanced, unbiased and neutral news source, if one even exists. For example, if a child spent their school days watching Fox News, they would potentially have a skewed opinion of the world due to its unabashed right-wing credentials. So we can see in those sentences we've got appropriate vocabulary about balance, about unbiased to neutral news. We've got interesting vocabulary there, potentially a skewed opinion, the unabashed right-wing credentials. Therefore, changing a child's information diet from traditional subjects such as music or geography to watching a potentially partisan news channel is an extremely worrying and risky idea. So we've not got errors in there. It's clear. This argument is using correct information to support their initial statement that they believe this to be dangerous and potentially damaging. Okay. So now we've got the second part of the text. Secondly, if international news were to become a new subject, it would have a detrimental emotional impact on young minds. So we've got some specific information there. In general, the majority of news is of a negative nature, hence the expression, if it bleeds, it leads. For example, so it's basically saying that bad news will be the first story, the major news stories. For example, studies by the IFA news agency show that 85% of headlines are negative in nature, usually referring to natural disasters, war, famine, etc. The logic of having these types of stories beamed into a school to those of an impressionable age has to be challenged. Thus, the obligation of watching news of a negative nature makes for a convincing argument against an innovation. So we've got emphatic language for the points being made. It has to be challenged. the stories being beamed into a school. So the impact there of the stories being beamed, not, it could just say the logic of having these new stories read out in a classroom, these stories broadcast in a classroom, but they're beamed into a school. So it's you know, highlighting that emphatic language, highlighting the impact that they could have. To conclude, due to the risk from political influences and the harsh reality of global news, I am strongly in favour of maintaining the current curriculum. So we're starting now with to conclude. So straight away we know that we're going to read a summary of the arguments. So we've got that clear paragraph structure. We can see as well the first paragraph on this slide. Secondly, so it's ordered the arguments chronologically. To conclude, a clear indicator of our final paragraph, and it's summing up the arguments but without repeating them. Okay, and then the last part of that sentence, I am strongly in favour of maintaining the current curriculum. They're emphasising their point again. Okay, so that's a very brief conclusion. There's no repetition, there's no excess information or irrelevant information or redundant language. So I hope you can see from those two paragraphs, those two slides, how you can structure your writing well. That's a really good example of a well-structured piece of writing. Okay, any questions? Okay, we've just got our quiz now, so we're nearly finished for the day. I'm aware that people have other appointments and some people have another lesson to go to, so we'll just be a few minutes now. So what is the logical order of a text? It must have a clear introduction, it needs plenty of appropriate detail, a beginning, a middle and an end, a strong conclusion. What's the logical order? C, good. Beginning, middle and an end. So a good introduction should tell the reader what the text will be about, include a rhetorical question, give plenty of details to support your writing, make your opinion very clear. A. So in the introduction, you're telling the reader what the text is about. Okay?
Yeah.
The topic sentence in a paragraph is always first, gives detail and evidence, closes the paragraph, or gives the main idea of the paragraph.
Middle.
Sorry?
D.
D, good. You might think A, because it's usually first, but sometimes it might be the second sentence. It's normally first, but it will always give the main idea of the paragraph, so it's D. Ideas in a paragraph must all relate to one idea, should have enough detail, A, B, and D are correct, should fit logically together.
Yeah.
A.
So it's actually C. So
C.
all the other,
Yeah, C.
all the other statements. Okay. What is a concluding paragraph? The last paragraph where you can include new ideas. The last paragraph where you give your opinion.
Yeah.
The paragraph where you give details and evidence. Or the last paragraph where you reinforce your ideas.
D.
D, good. You shouldn't. Your final paragraph, you're summarising, reinforcing your ideas. You're not giving a new idea or opinion, and you're not giving details and evidence. Summary. Okay. Okay. Good. So thank you for your contributions this morning.
Bye.
And check the recording in the week for anything that you want to look at, those lists of words and so on that you might want to jot down to learn. And there's some practice activities on Moodle for you as well. Okay, have a good week, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye now.